So what I'm saying really is we can rewire ourselves from the negative to the point where we only think positive things, where we only have thoughts of success, and we can look foolish in the eyes of other people, but I'd rather look foolish and be successful than everybody accept me and I'd be a failure.
People always trying to say I'm successful equal I'm on purpose, or I made my purpose, I reached all my goal. But it's not true. Like success, it's not equal purpose. Purpose, it's a lot more than just success.
Yeah.
It's infinitely more valuable for people to be on purpose than to be successful.
I believe business is a calling, just like life is a calling. But God sees it not as, are you on the narrow path or not, but more as I've called you to do something and I'm going to give you the ability to do whatever you believe for. So whatever you're willing to believe for, he's going to expand.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Alike Marketing, and today we are on our 6th episode with a guest, and we have a really special guest today, and his name is Andrew. He's a consultant who helps Christian businesses owners scale to $1 million in annual revenue. He spent the better part of his decade solving key leadership and operational problems for a variety of teams, helping generate multiple seven-figure revenue. He's also actually works as a CEO for Quarter Consulting. That is my business. And today it's a pleasure for me to have him here because he has helped a lot for my business. And I actually want him to introduce himself, to actually explain what he does and how much value can bring, not just on this podcast, but also in the people or in the business that he helps.
Yeah,
please,
thank
Andrew.
you. Really excited to be here, Giuseppe. Honestly, I love the vision that you have. I love just the leadership that you bring, not just to your business, but to every conversation that you're part of, and your goal of really getting value out of the conversation. Having that learning mentality, I think, is something that all of us can learn from. So I was really excited when you invited me to be part of the podcast because I enjoy our conversations. And so I'm excited to share with your audience as well. And I guess just a little bit of a background on me. I've done a lot of different things. At one point, I was sold out, was so sure I was going to be a doctor, a psychologist. I was studying that in college. And so I tried medicine. I went and did sales for a while, sold all kinds of things, everything from nearly door to door to retail sales. And then got a chance to work in operations at a large organization. And through that, I did something I promised myself I would never do, because my entire family is a family of engineers. So electrical engineers, software engineers, and I never wanted to work at a computer desk. But here I was finding myself in a cubicle and ended up joining a team that the primary role in that team was solving internal problems for the organization. So we would go, we'd meet with departments, we'd ask them questions, and I learned a couple of really key things, not just about teams, but also about myself. And the first was what I get most of my energy from, what I love to do, what I wake up in the morning to do and gets me excited, is getting somebody else to this aha moment of, oh my gosh, I can look at it this way, I can do something differently than I've done it before, and drawing out the potential that is inside of them. And getting them to see themselves differently, to see the opportunity differently. And really, even more exciting than solving problems is inspiring people to solve problems and to really just discover opportunities within challenges. That was the first thing I think that I learned, is that is my bread and butter. That is what I love to do. Hence being a business consultant, because all day long I get to talk to people, ask them questions that get them to think about things differently, and then really re-examine the strategy of their business and grow. That was the first thing. But the second thing that I learned was really just that business owners, I think... No, I apologize. I had two things. Said the first one. I forgot the second one. Just a moment. Lost my train of thought. Well, my apologies. So I guess it's just one thing. Well, I learned that I love to do that for people, but also, I think that Um, yeah, I think I'll leave it there because
I think
it'll come back to me,
yeah,
I'm sure.
and also I think like in our time together, as I always say, this is not a podcast where I'm looking at the time to make it
Sure.
done fast, or like, hey, you have 30 minutes, I have a question, you need to get there.
Mhm.
My idea is to go together. It's kind of like a trip we're taking together through like who you are, your business, and as the title say, I like marketing is because I'm not pushing marketing. I know a lot of people think
Sure.
like, oh, you are making a post, I'm expecting you to say so many things about marketing. It's like one thing we don't understand as marketing and branding is in everything, and it starts with us. Start
Sure.
with we are, with our testimonials, with what we went through. That's how marketing starts. That's where
Yeah.
it starts. That's how we can sell in for people. Like we don't sell product, or we don't sell services. We actually sell experience. We sell our testimonials. We sell who we are. People they
Okay.
don't buy from. We always say, I for me that's really a thing I believe that's strong, and I believe and I've seen by looking at people that they have made like hundred millions and billions of dollars that what they always say, people don't buy for what you're selling or the
Yeah.
product you're selling. They actually buy from you.
Sure.
Means like from the who you are, from the connection they created with you and everything. And that's something that's really important. But just only for say that we're gonna kind of like unveil some part of you. I think like through our discussion there will be
Sure.
more point that you will be able to share, because I know that I mean before starting together we have met more than one time, and then a part of that we also our family have met because for people that have seen my previous podcast I really point out multiple times that there is priorities in life, and families, wife, your children and God, they are always first before your business. Means that even if you have to make choice in the business and your wife may not be in every choice, but when are important choice you should always having her part of it.
Yeah.
Because whatever you do in business doesn't affect just the business, affect yourself, that can affect your family, your relationship with your spouse, your children and everything. That's important thing. And then because of that, I found that was really interesting because you probably were one of the first person I met that I decided to bring inside the team only after I met all your family.
Sure.
And I because of I saw that for you it's also important. I want you to share that side of it. How do you balance, for example, your work with your family, with your wife, and how you prioritize that? How you make sure that there is the right priority inside your life, and then and also like how do you help other people to do that? Do you help other people? Like how do you
Yeah.
engage with other people and train people to understand how this is important?
I love that. And I think that's a great question.
Mhm.
When it comes to prioritizing family as well, the way I see it is not necessarily fitting things into boxes. I
Yep.
think too often people think, I want success at work, success at home, and we end up separating our minds into different areas
Mhm.
where we say, maybe I'll rate myself an 8 out of 10 in my business, but I'm feeling like a 5 out of 10 in my marriage, or a 3 out of 10 in my parenting right now. And that's okay.
Mhm.
But to me, balance comes from focus. So if I am sitting with my son, my 3-year-old, and I'm sitting on my phone doing business emails, I'm making it clear to him I'm not focused on him. Whereas if he's interrupting a meeting I'm having with a client, then I'm making it clear to the client they're not important in this moment. So I think it really comes down to bringing energy to every conversation that you have. And one of the things I love to do that I think maybe this shows priority for family is I love to prepare for business meetings, and then I've learned there's a lot of nuance in how you communicate. So if it's a physical meeting, the way you walk in a room, the way you sit at a chair, the way you present yourself can change the whole tone of the meeting. It can make people feel safe. It can make them feel threatened. It can make people, solve problems or hold back and in fear. And I think the same thing with my family is if I bring my full self into that. And so when I read my son Bible stories, for example, what I realized is if I want him to be interested in something that's changed my life, I need to bring energy into it. So I'll read it and I'll get up and I'll act it out. I'll be reading about David and Goliath, and I'll stand up and shout and stomp and then fall over because he threw a stone at my head.
Mhm.
So I think when it comes to priorities, it's where do you bring your energy, and learning how to balance your energy in every area so that you can be alert at business and at your job. And then also learning how to bring energy into relationship with your spouse and do the things they love, and bring energy into relationship with your children
Mhm.
and pour into them. So that's kind of how I approach balance, is from a place of, am I pouring out, am I giving all of myself to the present conversation, or am I thinking about 5 things at once? Because if it's off balance, then nothing's a priority.
Yeah.
Really. You can't have success in one area and not have success in another area, because then you're a fractured person. You're somebody who you see yourself as split. And I think it's really important to cultivate wholeness as you pursue success in business. The success in business has to have a purpose.
Mhm.
Who are we serving? Who am I helping? And if I don't serve and help my family first, then how can I serve and help my customers or my clients? And how can I really show them that they matter? I might be getting distracted and focusing on something other than impacting people's lives.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I like to ask this question to other people because that's you show there is a different way you can go, and I've learned that with customer that people learn in different way. There is example I can make that they not go through for a person, but for example, like if you make the same, you're speaking the same topic but doing a different example because you have lived your life and your testimony is gonna actually speak to that to a different audience and different people, and that's the reason, and this is the reason also why I think we work together,
Mhm.
or I found that was important to work together was because we had, even if we had the same vision,
Sure.
we want to go to the same place, but because our mind thinks different and we have grow up different, we have different experience, the way we approach the path we take to get to the same things might be a bit different, like the way we
Sure.
train ourselves. And this is kind of like a simple example I use. It's, for example, like bodybuilding competition. That's something I like, gym and everything, but the end of goal for everyone is to go on the stage, but not everyone train in the same way to go on the stage. Everyone has a different type of training, different type of eating and everything. It doesn't mean that it's bad, that one is better, one is worse, and everything. It's just different. It's just different, and
Sure.
for that, it's important to understand what works for that person. Same things, our testimony and what we do, it can change the way we affect our customers, and that's the reason why I don't believe so much in competition as itself,
Hmm.
because I believe that God, there is people that they are made to listen from you. Like they are gonna get the best from you. They can get some from other people, but you are the person that actually speak 100% to them. And then we can see in the Bible, for example, I like to take the area when God says, whenever you sow a seed, it can either give 30, 60, or 100%, And we always use that for the word of God, and 100%, that's one of the best, it's one of the main connection.
For sure.
But that's the same things I believe with coaching. I've been meditating that, and that's something I've been sharing because it's kind of like something new for me too. But one things that God has pointed out is the same things as a coach. Whenever we speak people, there are some people that they have a heart for that we can provide 30% through us, or like 60 or 100%.
Yeah.
And it's not just their heart, it's actually the sower too, because also the sower has to recognize the right field. Like if you think about when you work in a farm and you also you grew up close to a farm and everything, I mean, it's the same things. Like people that grew up in a farm, they can recognize the quality of the soil. They don't.
Yeah.
They can see the quality of the soil. They know already that I know if I plant there, I'm gonna have the biggest harvest. If I plant there, it's not gonna be good. And that's one part of the story that was interesting, is that even purposely the sower was throwing seeds everywhere because like he wanted to reach as many people as possible. That's what God does. That's what we do in business. We are trying to reach as many people as possible, but also we need to recognize, we say, our target audience. That's what we use, that they are the people that have the best soil for what we bring.
Yeah.
And that they can have the best harvest that can be 60, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like something that parable, and God, Jesus said himself, that's the parable of life. That's where everything comes. If you understand that, you understand all the other parable. You understand everything else in life, and I think like that's how also affect business
Sure.
and all of this because I want to say I think there is so much value of what you bring in,
Mm.
and there is like so much uniqueness in what you do and the way you teach and the way you share things that I've experienced in also in quality consulting has helped a lot to go to move forward, and I am sure for it's been a blessing for also our client, and with coaching together I'm sure we can reach more people. But in that topic my question would be, what do you think about that? Well, how do you think your testimonial, your past can affect the target audience that you think? Because everyone
Mm.
think that the target audience is connect to your product or service, and there's part of
Ah.
that. But in reality, I think like there is connection also to who you are yourself.
Oh man, there's so much that you said that's really interesting that I want to speak to.
Mhm.
So let me address one thing that I think you said that just I love it so much because I think most people miss this.
Uh-huh.
When I started off as a manager leading a team, I think it was a team of around 3 people, and then they each had teams
Mhm.
of about 8 to 10. So it was
Yeah.
about 30, 40 people. One of the things I learned very quickly is the golden rule is treat other people the way you would want to be treated.
Mhm.
But there's a depth inside of that that is you want to treat people the way that they need you to treat them so that you can they can receive it the same way you would. Basically, people are diverse. There's diverse perspectives. There's diverse input, and when you sow, whether it's leadership or marketing, whatever it is, there's going to be different responses.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's because people aren't, necessarily being responsive, even though you have been called to help them. Other times it's just because they're not the people that you're supposed to reach. So with that topic, of understanding your journey, I think a lot of people, you can see your journey. I think those of you who are listening right now, I want you guys to just for a second think about your journey, the last 10 years.
Mhm.
Think about new jobs you've gotten, businesses you've started, maybe clients you've lost, failures. In your mind, it might be failures, but there's usually a string of things that we think this was good, this was bad,
Mhm.
right? In our journey. However, with that, one thing we might, see is because of this experience I've had, therefore I'm not qualified because I'm looking at something somebody else is doing, the way they're doing, and the people they're reaching. Whereas if instead we see it as this is my journey, this is who I am. I don't need to pretend to be somebody else. This
Mhm.
is what I've been through. This is the experience I've had. I don't need to put up a facade. And there's people that I'm called to reach uniquely. And that's the part that I love, and kind of what you brought that back to
Mhm.
is I believe business is a calling, just like life is a calling.
Mhm.
But God sees it not as, are you on the narrow path or not, but more as I've called you to do something and I'm going to give you the ability to do whatever you believe for.
Mm.
So whatever you're willing to believe for, he's going to expand. We
Mhm.
serve an infinite God.
Yep.
And a God of infinite increase. So if you've reached, level 10 and that's as high as you have imagined then you could go, that's as high as you're going to go, but God might invite you to level 100.
Mhm.
And then you have to 10x what you're doing
Mm.
and realize, wait, I can bring way more value than I have so far, but it's all hidden in the journey. So one of the things, just as we're on the topic of marketing,
Mm.
I think one of the most important things to realize is how do you generate a product?
Mhm.
So a lot of people can generate a product from this is an idea I think would be good that could probably help people, and they'll throw it out in the marketplace. And marketing is just, I make my message heard by as many people as possible.
Yeah.
But I heard something recently that marketing is actually the opposite. Marketing is hearing, it's listening first. You listen first to your audience, and then you take that in, and that forms the product.
Yep.
Whereas there's this need that they have, and there's this journey I've been on, and so I want to help somebody else get to point B
Mhm.
on the journey I'm on. And then I go and I find those other people who are on a similar journey, point A, where I started, and I craft something from hearing them that's going to help them, whether it's a product or service or whatever it is. So I think it's just so important to cultivate a healthy mindset that encourages you to be creative and encourages you to see opportunity. And wherever you see, I'm disqualified because of my life experience, maybe you're looking at the wrong thing. Maybe instead you should say, what has my life experience qualified me to help other people with?
Yep.
And you switch it, you put it on its head.
That's great. And for people that haven't seen, like, there is something that you have talked about, but you didn't say it. You didn't really say it, but it's the fact that we are programmed to think a certain way, and there is a simple test to think about it. Like, we are more attracted to bad things than the good things. What I mean with that, if we drive around and there is an accident, we're gonna slow down to see the accident. Like, everyone, like, I never understand. That was something I fight against myself to do that, because I never understand why people like brakes to look at the accident. I'm like, you're making another accident just by doing that. I was like, why you're doing that? Just keep driving. But it's funny because people, like, they're looking out for bad things happening, accident, like someone dying, oh, there is a fire, stuff. Like, people will stop to do anything else. Now time is not important anymore. Money is not important anymore, because they need to see like something bad is happening. And that's also because that's how I'm also from TV, because all TV never speak about good things. They always like continually repeating since we are kids. We continually hear bad things happening. Like, every time we turn on a TV on the news, it's always about someone dead, someone kills someone is doing this, someone do that. It's always about bad thing. But in reality, I do the opposite. Let's say you drive and there is like a beautiful scene and things. The majority of people will not slow down. If they're on freeway, they will not brake just to look at the beautiful scene or like the rainbow and everything. They would just
sad. We live in Colorado with the mountains, and
exactly.
There's so much opportunity to see the beautiful scenery.
Yeah, and majority of people, they don't spend time to look at that. You will never see no one braking with the car to look at a scenery or like a rainbow, and they were like, oh wow, there are so many rainbows and things. I'm like, also accidents. Since I've been in Colorado, I've seen at least like over 20 accidents. Most of the traffic light. I've seen cars are like upside down, cars on fire and everything. You can see ton of accident. I think you see more accident than rainbow. But like, at the end of the day, it's literally that. It's like the way we are programmed to think. And that's come to what you were saying before, is that whenever we look at our life, our past, we always think at all the bad things happen in our life. Like, the first memories come to our mind is like how I failed in this, how I lost this client, how this didn't work, this product was a failure, like my marriage was a failure. The last, my friend was the one that was supposed to be my big good friend was not a good friend. And we forget about the good moment. We forget about actually what we learned from that, how we can grow from that, how there were good moments. And this is actually the reason also why business fails. Part of business fails is because of that, because we, instead to focus on, we look at the past all the time and we let the past dictate our future. We're like, oh, if it didn't work and I do again, it's not gonna work again.
Sure.
Instead of be like, hey, it didn't work in the past, why it didn't work? Let me reset, let me see if I can change something. You were saying before, let's make this product now fit the people, because probably the first prototype didn't fit the people, that's why it didn't work. Instead of to cry and be like, hey, it didn't work, that's it, well, I'm not going, I can refit it, right?
I love a lot of what you shared. I think is very, very true of the majority of people, but I would challenge that it has to be true. And what I mean by that is, I think we're programmed to think negative by our society, even by our biology.
Yeah.
I love studying psychology, love studying biology. And, but my favorite thing to study is the scripture, because I believe psychology looks at human beings from the outside in, whereas through revelation from our creator, we can see human beings from the inside out. And we can actually understand what led to those things happening. But psychology is so important to understand in marketing, because you can have a message that says, if you don't get our product, here's all the bad things that'll happen. Here's all the bad things that have been happening to you, and here's our product, and here's how it's going to solve, right? That's an opportunity. There's nothing wrong with marketing that way. But people tend to hear that fear message because they're programmed that way. And that's a way to sell a product, but it's actually not a way to create transformation in people's lives.
Yeah.
Because transformation comes from learning to think differently. And we can reprogram our minds. Because I don't think about all the negative things that happened to me. Not anymore.
Mhm.
I used to, really strongly. Those were my biggest memories. If you asked me, what are the biggest things that have happened in your life? But now I'm just thankful. I'm thankful for my marriage, for my kids, for the home we live in, for our car, whatever it is, for opportunities the Lord gives me, for friendships. And what I've come to believe is that after the fall, after humanity fell away from God's perfect reality, we entered into a world in which there's death and suffering and sickness and evil, and then we're programmed with fight or flight, where we're constantly looking out of like, what is going to happen? There's a person over there, are they going to hurt me?
Mhm.
There's a wild animal over there. If I'm sleeping at night, I need to have my ears tuned to know if something's going to come and try to eat me, right? So we're programmed for fear. So we have this like strong neurological response whenever there's fear or anticipation of wrong. But I heard this recently that I think it's really powerful. If you don't mind me sharing this perspective of like there's a difference between fear and anxiety. True fear is an actual response, a biological response, and hopefully a physical response to a current and present threat, right? If somebody is getting in my face saying they're going to beat me up, I either need to fight back or I need to run.
Yeah.
But anxiety is actually anticipating a potential future danger, but the reaction in our biology is the same.
Yeah.
And if we spend a lot of time in the past focused on our failures and our fears, we can program ourselves for anxiety for the future, which leads us on the same track we've always been on.
Yeah.
But if we learn to see things differently, if we learn how to cultivate gratitude in our lives and how to see opportunities, because that's kind of what I was sharing about, you can see your journey as all the negatives you've been on, and you can stay on that journey for the rest of your life.
Yep.
Or you can start to reprogram your mind and see the good things that have happened and then cultivate faith. And I think people don't, even in the Christian circle, don't really understand the power of faith, because faith is the ability it's really the ability to manifest a good future. And it's a God-given ability because I have so much hope. I was talking to somebody just recently who was dealing with a lot of depression. And I used to be severely depressed, even suicidal. And I shared with them basically, God changed my heart because my circumstances didn't change, but my depression completely left and gave me hope. And I learned the power of faith to see an imagined future outcome where everything's good. And I was just listening to somebody talking about, it's a proverb. I'll have to look up the reference, but it essentially says, the righteous man, his thoughts are only good for the future.
Yep.
And so I think it's just so important, especially if you guys are listening to this and you're self-reflecting, which I tend to do a lot, and you're thinking, what are my negative thoughts or my positive thoughts in the last week? It's important to cultivate that mindset of hope. And if there's more negative than there are positive, then you're literally using your mind's power to manifest a future outcome that's not what you want.
Yep.
And you've got to learn how to reprogram that by changing the way you think, getting around people that think differently than you do, hopefully listening to this podcast and hearing about the opportunities and especially the vision Giuseppe has. It's one of the things I love about having conversations with you is you have a powerful ability to envision a future outcome that's full of hope and possibility, and then to pursue it. And whereas a lot of people will give themselves excuses and say, let's not go for it. Let's hold back because it's not going to work because all these things that have failed. And it's like, no, let's try it. Let's give it a shot. Let's just try it. And what if it works?
Yeah.
And we approach it that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's I think, and it's not easy. Like I want to make sure people understand is like be able to be always positive and be like always having faith for the future. It's not the easiest thing. Like there's many days that you can wake up and be like, oh, okay, I don't know, I'm gonna make this or where I'm gonna get the money or where I'm. But the idea is that if you spend too much time going through how you can make it, you waste the time. Like you might have wasted 1 hour of your day instead of like meet with someone and making a sale to actually self-pity yourself on how you cannot make it happen. And that's always I trying to use that thing. So like my time is too precious to spend time thinking bad.
Yeah,
It makes sense.
absolutely.
That's the main things. And then connect to what you were saying. There's it was so many years ago, but there was like there is actually a way homework that people can do to see what are their thoughts, and you just like literally you count for a 1 minute. Open your book or notes and everything, and start to write every thoughts come to your mind for 1 full minute,
Yeah.
and then I reread them. And then a lot of time, at least that's when I did myself, there were a lot of anxiety, like I was kind of like scared, like, oh, if this doesn't work and everything, even if I was doing it, but there were so many things. And then one things I learned to do, what you do, you can take all the negative part, what you wrote down, and now you find like you wrote the positive goal, like the positive
Yeah.
reaction of it. And then it's like, for example, like if your mindset is like, I don't know if I can pay all my debt by the end of July, that's a negative hope. Then like you will write inside, thank you God for that I will pay all my debt by the end of July. And then now instead of think about 1 minute, now you're gonna reread them, and that can be like every day you're gonna read them again and again and again, and every time this wrong hope, like because there is good and bad hope. The majority of hope in the Bible, if you look at the word hope in the Bible, the majority of the time is used as a bad way. Like God is literally telling, like imagination is also the word imagination. Like in the Bible, most in the Old Testament, like you say that imagine is evil and stuff like that. We always think that imagination itself is evil and hope is good, but in reality they are the same word. It's still hope, but like God is just pointed out the fact that in the Old Testament you were not able to hope for good by itself, but only God can help you hoping for good. God can give you the faith. God is the one can give you the joy. God can give you the peace to be able to hope for good. Because in ourselves with the sin and because of what happened in the world, we tend always to hope for bad. Like we are really biological and also like circumstances as worked as hard to hope for bad outcome. Like we see our parents as like, oh, this didn't happen, or this didn't work out and everything, how it's gonna work out for me. Or like even if we might thinking we are maybe that type of person, like I can do better than them, but if you notice, you still limit yourself. You don't really work as a limitless. You don't really have like amazing hope or impossible hope or like overflowing hope, but you just have like, I just hope I can make a bit more than that person. And that's like, and even that for me, it's not called like positive hope. Like you're just like trying to compare yourself, but you're not really looking at what God has made you to be. You're not looking at I think the best fight is between yourself. It's like that's where you have to hope that every day you are the better person than the day before. That you can do something better than the day before. You can get better in sales, you can get better in your product, you can get better in marketing, you can meet better people, you can get stuff like that.
Let me jump off something you're saying there that I really love. And I think that negative hope, or if you're looking at the past and you're basing your life off of, this is where I came from, this is what I've done so far, and because of these circumstances, I expect it to be the same. Our expectation creates our future reality. And so what you've done, though, is you've abdicated the role that God has given us as creators, with a little c, right? But we're made in God's image. And so we're the creators of our future reality, but not just our future reality, the future reality for other people. And why is somebody going to follow, why is somebody even going to want to be around you? And I can speak for this because I used to be the most negative person I knew, and I had no friends. Nobody wanted to be around me. I didn't even want to be around myself. But you can constantly be speaking out negative things, and this is what's going to happen, and you don't realize it, but you become this like energy sucker for yourself, where you don't have any energy, nobody else around you does. They don't necessarily want that because you're drawing from other people as opposed to giving out. But if you base your life off your previous circumstances, and here's the other thing, this is a really, really powerful lie that most people believe. Most people aren't successful, right? 95% of people in the US alone will never get out of basically living paycheck to paycheck. So why would we take advice? If you're trying to build something successful, you can't agree with and believe what most people believe. You have to change the way you think and change what you believe. Most people will approach life as these are the circumstances I've had, and it's that person's fault.
Yeah.
Or it's the government's fault, or it's the economy today. There is never a reason, or it's the color of my skin, or it's the background I have. You know, I grew up a redneck family, didn't have any money. I was born in a trailer, whatever it is. You know, my family was poor, or this was that, or, you know, there's always reasons, but none of them are reality. They're outside circumstances. And if anybody's ever told you that you're never going to succeed because, and they fill in the blank, it doesn't matter what that is. If you don't have opportunities, you can create them. If you grew up in poverty, I know a lot of people who grew up in poverty and that was their fuel to create wealth. And what I'm trying to share, I suppose, is something that was shared with me, which led me to be free, not just of depression, but also to encounter God and give my life to Jesus, was somebody told me that depression comes from believing lies about yourself. And if you choose to do exactly what you just said, if you replace lies with the truth, and the greatest truth, because I've tried just writing the opposite of my lies, it doesn't always work. The things that are, you know, bring about darkness or despair in my life. But I find when I study the Word of God and I find God's promises and His hope and His perspective on things, because the Word says that He has more thoughts about us than the sand on the seashore, and they're all good. So if He has more good thoughts about me than I do, and He has less bad thoughts about me than I do, I'd like to change my thoughts for His thoughts and think His thoughts so I can live the life He wants me to live. And that's how you shift, is you don't blame your circumstances, blame people around you, blame your past, but instead you say, no, I'm made in the image of God. I'm a creator. I can create my future reality if I learn to tap into faith with God and then shift my trajectory from living life by myself to living life from His future reality that He intends for me, which is to give me a future and a hope. So what I'm saying really is we can rewire ourselves from the negative to the point where we only think positive things, where we only have thoughts of success because we know, nope, that's what's going to happen. It's going to be successful. And we can look foolish in the eyes of other people, but I'd rather look foolish and be successful than everybody accept me and I'd be a failure.
Yeah, that's awesome. And actually, there is a question that comes with that, because you say you were in depression, and I would like to come to the point where I want to hear like how that happened, how you got, like, I believe you now know like how you entered to depression, what was that took you there, and then like how you get out. But before that, I would like to at this point that one thing that before being believer, I used to have some type kind of like not depression, but like I used to battle with bully and stuff like that. And even a university had a teacher came to me. That was like the worst exam. Like it took me like 5 times to do. Normally, I was the type of person. I study 1 week, I get the exam right away. I actually got in the beginning the exam, but because I go with the lower things, I was like, no, I'm not gonna accept the lower degree like grade. I want to have a better grade. And in Italy, you can say like, I don't want to take this grade. Then I come back to do the exam later. I want to retake it to get a better grades.
Okay.
You can do that. I know a lot of other countries they don't do that, but in Italy it's possible. Like in Italy also normally every exam is divided into 2 parts. You have like the written exam, and then you have oral exam that is on the blackboard in front of all your class. Pretty much everyone sees you failing or not. Like a really nice feeling. It's like it's not for the it's not for the faint of heart.
Nothing like public shaming.
Exactly. Mostly, when you get. Because you get teacher shaming you crazy. Like I've seen people, teacher laughing you in your face, like or like call you any name, like in front of everyone, and you're like, okay, But anyway, I used normally to take every exam pretty easy. This one, because I don't know why, but I didn't want to take the lower grades, and by not taking the first attempt with the lower grades, it took me other 5 times.
Wow.
And I remember that time was kind of like really hard. I started to lose hair in one point because also there is another things that there is some exam that they are like they are called I don't remember the word in English specific, but in what means that if you don't take this exam, you don't pass the exam, you are not allowed to go to the next year.
Okay. But I think the English word might be like a prerequisite.
Yeah, prerequisite. Yeah, it's a prerequisite. Then what happened is like, okay, if I don't pass this, I cannot do my third year.
Wow.
And I had some
no pressure at all.
no pressure, exactly. Yeah, and some teacher they were like, oh, you do the exam, I will put like kind of like virtual grades, and then once you pass that one, I'm gonna just writing down like that you passed it. Also this one, but it was hard. I was losing hair and everything. And one thing happened is that I decided, I woke up, I was like, no, I'm gonna do this. Finally, I get this exam. This teacher, after fifth time, while we were walking down the stairs, he tells me like, hey, I want to tell you that you will never be an engineer. Like, I don't think you are called to be an engineer and everything because I struggled on that exam and everything. And I was like, okay, sure, fine. Like, there was something, I believe that time was already God, even if I didn't know him directly. Yeah. There was some type of fire inside me that I remember after I passed this exam, I did 11 more exam in about 9 months.
Okay.
And each one is written and oral. Then you can think about it's not 11, it's like more like 22 because you go first to do the written, then you have to wait to get and once you pass the written, then you need to go back again to do the oral.
Okay.
Then it was crazy. Like, I don't know how they did. I passed all the exam a lot harder than his. I passed on the first attempt. Some of them I started 3 days. It was crazy. Like, I don't know. I know it was God. Like, I didn't know at that time. I know now. But one thing that I always thought was like that people, you can choose 2 ways to respond to someone that tells you like, hey, you can make it or you cannot be that person. You either say yes and you accept your fate, like what that person spoke, like the fate that person spoke on you, the hope, or you can say, no, I'm gonna challenge whatever you said. I'm gonna make you, I'm gonna show you that I can do it.
Yeah.
And that was like what I did that time. But then like one thing that I learned once I got saved, that there is actually a third way. And it's like what you were saying before, go on the Bible and read the promise of God. Read what God has said about you, that he can give you anything, that everything is possible, that nothing can stand against you, that he has, that in Exodus, like Moses every morning will say like, arise, O Lord, and make my enemies flee. That was the things, like you can say that every morning and say like, yeah, these words that were speaking with me are my enemy. I rise, O Lord, and make these enemies flee from me. Like, I don't accept any of this word. And then there is also Isaiah, I think, says that you should the word, I forgot the word that they use in New King James, but pretty much shut down or shut up every tongue that raise against you. Rebuke every tongue that raise against you. That's kind of like the same thing. Funny things with that, what I would like to share with people is that once this guy told me all this thing, I was the one of the first one graduating from my master. He didn't even know that I made the master. He thought that I was still in the bachelor. And then because he was one of the people that had to kind of like give me the paper, my degree. Okay. And after my presentation, because I did my thesis in Germany, not in Italy, he came to me, asked me if I wanted to do a PhD with him.
Did he remember who you were?
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
You remember? He asked.
Did he ever say he was wrong or
no? Nothing. Okay. He came to ask.
He might have forgot.
I had my friend literally standing with me, and they were like, everyone was like, they were shocked. It was like, what the heck? Because everyone knew. Because I told people like that. I told all my friends, and they all knew what he said, what he did, how much harder made him my life. I was losing my hair to how much I was getting bad with him. And then like he came like, oh, I would like to have you for my PhD. I'm like, what the heck? These things happen. And And one other thing that I would say God is faithful is the amazing thing is because I decided to not listen to him,
Mhm.
I also was one like between all my colleagues that year, I'm the one that I don't know now, but I can tell you like maybe even for now, I'm the one still that made the highest amount of money for as an engineer. Like when I was working in Switzerland, I was
Sure.
making over six figure with engineer, and I think like pretty much none of them, even people that they were like supposed to be better than me in
Mhm.
university, they didn't reach that. At least they didn't reach that in the first 2 3 years.
That's
Maybe now
yeah.
after 5 6 years, yes. And that's where I say like at the end of the day, the last word is from God. God
Well,
has the last
and
word of
well, it
everything.
depends. I think we get to decide.
True.
We get to give the last word to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think your two questions, if I understand what you're asking, are the same question, really.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because for me, depression came from who I gave authority over my belief about myself.
Yeah.
So, we can see ourselves from a different perspective. Usually, I would say the vast majority, probably 99% of people, they define who they are by their circumstances, by how their parents treated them, by their friends, by the different things they've done in life, even if it's successes, that's what they see,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually a really interesting principle, is that the greatest enemy to your future success is your current comfort.
Well, that's
Um,
good.
but for me, I grew up one of the youngest out of seven kids.
Mm-hmm.
Mom and dad, I would say they loved us very, very, very much and showed us that on a regular basis. So I was very blessed with the family that I grew up in. But I learned to really see my value and see my identity through the lens of what other people thought about me very strongly. So when I went to high school, I was the weird, quirky kid who was homeschooled before. So I joined this class. It was a small high school, but I tried to build friendships. I tried to build relationships, and I just felt rejected at every turn. And ultimately, I took that back to myself, and I had a real crisis in my own mind and in my own heart. And some of it was based in reality, and some of it wasn't. The reality was, I I came to a deep awareness of my own sinfulness, just how selfish I was, how I kept finding a new limit to how mean I could be to people around me without wanting to be that way, right? Because I grew up in a tradition that told you those things were bad, but then I would continue to do them, and really just find a level of darkness I don't want to associate with myself. And so the more I felt rejected, the more I got depressed, and my depression turned into anger. And I ended up being a really destructive, very angry person who I would threaten people. I threatened my parents just to hurt them. I think even burn their house down at one point. I know, crazy. That's not the person that I am today, but actually ended up spending a night in jail for a fight that I got in with somebody because I was just such an angry person. And I had an encounter with God there where he spoke to me and he said, looking at this concrete, cold cell, iron bars, at last you see the jail cell in your own heart. And the next day, my dad bailed me out and I walked into the light. And it did something where I realized, I've lived my life to this point trying to prove myself to other people, trying to find value in my circumstances. And here I am in a jail cell. I have no value. There's nothing more I can look at. I was somebody who had good grades as well, was successful in school, just horrible at life. Uh, but I walked out and I heard God's voice for the second time in my life. And he said, just like your dad paid your bond so you could be set free from this jail, I paid the blood of my son to set you free from the jail in your own heart. And that led me on a path of studying, what does that mean? What is the gospel? What does Jesus really do? And I think, man, there are so many people that are drawn to whether it's New Age or other philosophies that are rebelling against just the nihilism of today and the depression and the vast that's just across everybody because of the lack of purpose in people's lives. And I wish they would know this one thing, that God created us in his image and we fell from that through sin, but Jesus saw so much value in us that that's what the cross means. The cross is him saying, I value your life more than I value my own.
Yeah.
And if that's true, then my circumstances don't define who I am. Other people's words don't define who I am. Somebody saying you'll never be an engineer, you'll never be successful. I had somebody tell me, something similar in my life after I met the Lord, but I can either go to myself and I can say, I don't believe that. And so I'm going to see myself differently, but I'm still a limited vessel. I can draw from the well of my own, power to say that's not who I am. But at the end of the day, that'll dry up. The one thing that never dries up, whenever I get discouraged, I open the scripture and say, no, Jesus still died for me. My life has value because of what he did. And therefore, I bring value to the marketplace because I have value already. I don't need anybody to affirm me. I don't need somebody to pay me a certain amount of money for me to say, look at me, I'm valuable now. And I think that no matter what level of success you've achieved, there's people who are multi-billionaires who identify their value from that. And then you find out these stories of, their wife left them, or their life is in shambles, or they lost everything. Now, that's not everybody, but I would rather be rich on the inside and poor on the outside than poor on the inside, no matter how rich your life is. Because the scripture says that God gives riches and adds no sorrow to it. And that's because the richness he gives is first internal. And it's internal by our belief about the value we have and our choice to believe that word over any other word. And I love that you brought in the concept of the sower, because one of my favorite analogies is just that our hearts are a garden. And we produce the words we believe. If you believed that word when he said, you'll never be an engineer, you probably would have left college, stopped pursuing your degree. You might still be in Italy doing some other job, right? But you didn't believe that. And so you didn't let that be sown into your heart. And that's an interesting perspective that has probably brought more freedom in my life than almost anything else, is we need to intentionally have a hard heart towards the words that speak death and negativity and depression over us, and have a soft heart to the words that are from God that speak life and future and a hope. And we need to have a soft heart towards the people that speak those good things about us and our future, and a hard heart towards. And now, a hard heart doesn't mean being cruel, but a hard heart is a heart that the seed doesn't sink in. So I've had conversations with people where, because of the struggle they're in, they're speaking all these negative things at me and saying, you'll never be a success. You're just this arrogant person. You think that this, and this, and you're just trying to build success for yourself. And I could truly say, no, that's not true. You can believe that, but that's not true. And when you have that inside, doesn't matter what somebody says, that kind of goes past you. It flies past you. It doesn't land in your heart, doesn't produce anything in your life. And that is what set me free of depression, is the belief that I have value because of the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross, number one. Number two, he said, I'll be with you even to the end of the age. So he's with me. And number three, the scripture says, in my presence is fullness of joy. So you don't fight darkness by avoiding darkness. You fight darkness by replacing it with light. And so his joy is what solved depression permanently in my life. And whenever anxiety comes up or fear, I replace it with the joy that I have in my relationship with Christ and my belief in the value he places on me.
Amen. Yeah. Like turn on the switch.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You cannot really, if a room is dark, the only way for you to have light is turn on the switch. And there is no other way. You cannot take out the darkness from the room, but you can actually turn on the light through the Bible. But one thing that you also were saying is that I think it's even deeper than things, because you say sometimes what we can do is we can find this purpose or confidence inside of us, and we can use that to kind of fight against bad words. But it's a lot faster and easier whenever you open the Bible and you read the promises of God and everything. But even in that, I don't believe that you can find inside. What I mean that is that even when I heard that person told me hey, you're not gonna be able to do that. First of all, I really felt it was there was a fire inside me, and I really believe it was God the first prayer. But second things, one thing that helped me to not be discouraged is that I was watching people that they made it, people that they were doing motivators. I like to watch anime. My favorite anime type is the one where the main character is like weak, he's not able to do anything, but through training and perseverance and confidence, he get to be like the strongest on any of compared to anyone else. And that actually I was not. We don't really can. No one can find really confidence in himself. There is not really any way that you always gonna look at someone else to give you confidence, no matter what. You know, when we say like, oh, I have confidence in myself, maybe you have for 5 minutes. As soon like one of your tire of your car explode and you don't have money to pay for the tire, your confidence is gone. It's like it's done. It's like there's nothing. Or like someone call you and say like, oh, you're fired. Your confidence gone like right away. And that's what you do is like now it's your response is like you're gonna go and watch something. Are you gonna go watch news where you get even more depressed? Or are you gonna turn on coaching or mentors on YouTube that they help you? They tell you like do. But even a better one, you can open the Bible, and then you have the best coach in the world, the best mentor in the world, that is Jesus, and you can just open it and read what God is saying. You were saying like, in me you find the fullness of joy, or like the fruit of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, long suffering. There is long suffering, yeah, because we are supposed. There is the suffering part of it, or life, but it's not forever suffering. It's long suffering. God give you a spirit, a fruit of Spirit that allow you to go through this hard moment, but see the light at the end of the tunnel. You're gonna always get to the point where there is a light. There is a light. There is a light each time. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna be in this dark tunnel forever, and things. But yeah, that's the main thing. I don't believe that there is such things as like self-confidence, or like I don't believe self-confidence can really last long. Like you always take this self-confidence from someone. Either you read a book, you read you have some type of devotional morning, you have some type of like YouTube video, you have something in your bathroom that say you're a beautiful and wonderful maid. Like there is something, you have to read words or you have to hear people saying things for you to build up confidence for yourself.
Yeah.
And
well,
then,
I actually totally agree with that. And I think there's this concept of, I'm a self-made man, which is just a lie, because nobody is self-made. There's somebody you learned from or somebody you saw go ahead of you that made you believe it was possible. And that led you to, being able to live that out yourself. And I love what you brought out about who you choose to listen to and what you choose to look at is so powerful in determining where your life is going to go. And I think there's an opportunity there, though. If you are just starting out in business, then make yourself a lifelong learner. Yeah. And, get really good at learning from other people. Especially, here's the other thing. If you want to be a coach, be somebody who's delightful to coach. Yep. The first step, and this actually, I spent probably 4 or 5 years learning how to receive feedback before I ever stepped into coaching. Because if, we sow what we reap, and that's true regardless of whether you believe the Bible or not. Even other cultures have discovered that, and they call it karma or other things like that. But sowing and reaping is the biblical principle of what you sow, you'll reap. So if you want to be somebody who your clients are receiving from you and they're getting feedback, then be delightful. And one of the things I learned to say, when somebody would say some hard criticism is, and it doesn't really matter if it's true or not. It's just, thank you for caring about me so much that you brought that to my attention. Yep. And I'll think about it. I will reflect on that. And if that's something that I need to change, I will change that because I want to grow. And I've learned to be somebody who can even be delightful for people who, on paper report to you, people who you're responsible for, and be somebody who, when they come to you with feedback and criticism, you say, thank you. Thank you for caring so much about our company that you want to give me feedback that'll help me grow. But then you reflect on that and you think about it, and you decide, is this a word that's accurate or not? You don't just take their word for it, because they might be speaking from their own experience and not necessarily from yours. They might be saying something that's not actually true about you, that's just from their perception. But I think it's really, really important that you surround yourself with voices, to your point, that speak that future and that hope, and that you see the scripture through the lens of the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross.
Mhm.
And you learn to identify, this is the way God sees me. And if God sees me this way, the crazy thing is we have an opportunity to go even beyond that. If God sees me as valuable, then the people in my life are valuable. And if the people in my life are valuable, I can tell them they're valuable, and I can draw that out. And so I think you go on this, or at least I did. I went on this progression of being somebody who is consumed with fear and doubt and hopelessness, to being somebody who learned to listen to the right voices, said yes to the voice of God being Lord in my life, and then learned that He's inviting me to be a voice for other people too. And that I can encourage them and tell them the potential that God sees in them and help draw that out and share that. And there's people who will receive and people who won't. Because if you're marketing and you're casting your seed, one of the things, other lessons from the sower, is when he sowed ground on the path and it didn't produce anything, obviously he just gave up and stopped sowing, right?
Yep.
No, he sowed again. But then he produced seed that died right away. But then he sowed again. And so you keep sowing because and I like to think about sowing as serving. You keep serving people in your business. And if it doesn't work for somebody, okay, serve somebody else. If it doesn't work for them, serve somebody else. If it doesn't work for them, maybe reflect on it and think, am I actually bringing value to the table? Do I understand the problem I'm trying to solve well? But keep that heart of serving, I think, is just so essential. And keep yourself encouraged in the voices that you're listening to.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that how you kind of like open in different way. And on the sowing parable is so powerful. There's so many things that I've seen. And one thing is that it's funny because people think about like why this sower like would just throw his seed on the rock or would throw his seed on the pathway and everything. And funny things of all of this, it's part of the law. Like if you read the Leviticus law, God told people to actually purposely throw their seed on the pathway. And that was for the poor people. And it's like you're gonna harvest the mainland and you leave that one on the side that people that don't have money or are poor and everything, they can come and they have something for it.
Yeah.
It means that God was actually, the reason why he was doing that, it's not because the Hebrew, they don't know. The Hebrew knew that they were supposed to do that. And for them was not, they never asked the question like, why am I going to throw my seed on the rock? Actually, God, like by law, they had to do that. They were forced by God to throw their seed on every side of the ground, not only on the good ground, but also on the semi-good and totally bad ground. And that's the reason why. One, it's because he said that he provides food for birds. That's one way to provide food for birds. But second is actually he provides food for homeless. When we see homeless, what we can identify with homeless, and homeless are the people that they don't know about God. They cannot enter the church yet, or like they don't have the heart soft enough to be like producing much fruit, but they are looking for something on the side. Like they're not ready yet to maybe open the Bible, and they're not ready yet to enter the church. But at the same time, they're looking for some wording. They're looking for some help. They're looking at things, and that's kind of like the pathway. They're like, we are to sow on the side. Even for us, we always look at the parable on the heart side of it, but we never look the parable on the sower side. We have to be the sower that's like we are throwing our seed in any place. The God's seed is not just for in the church where we know that there is good ground, or only when we find the right person that has a good ground, then we speak about God. Anyone else, we don't speak about God. God is telling us, hey, no matter that person's heart and where he is, you speak about God. You tell him about me. You tell him about how peaceful it is living with me. Doesn't matter his ground. We can always make like a stony ground can always be turned into good ground. A pathway can always be turned into good ground. You just need the right machine. Or we can say we need the right words, but can always be turned in the right ground. There is a way to turn the right ground. Then we don't have to devalue the stone things or even ourselves, if we are not ready yet, we don't have a thing, we don't devalue that. We just ask God to work our heart. We just ask God, like, do some work here, and like, in fact, there is something is in John. It's the only one that actually does that, and that's because, like, John used the deity of Jesus, represent Jesus on the God way, that he said that he will give the Holy Spirit, the spirit of fire,
Yeah.
and people put together, but actually I believe there's a different, and he will say that will burn the ground, and there is I need to search that place, but is one thing that point out is the fact that will go around and burning everything, the field and the ground with everything, and if you grow up in a farm, there is one thing that burning does really well, that actually people want to do that, mostly if you are and this is the reason why he used that, if you have sheep and you have cattle and everything, one thing that these people do, that is the only problem, is sometimes they don't do right, they burn everything. Why they burn everything? Because when you burn the ground, the new grass that is popping out will be fresh, a lot nicer and softer, and will make better milk for the sheep.
Sure.
Then you will have a fertile ground, you have a more fertile ground and everything. And that's kind of like the things where God was like, the burning, like, you have to let God burn your heart. You have to let God, like, mess with your heart a bit, if it makes sense. It would be hard in the beginning. You would be like, why you're taking up these things? I totally forgot about, I had this depression. I forgot, like, my dad doing this to my mom. Why you're taking this up? Because God is like, I cannot, if you don't do that, you still have rock. All my seed, there will be still rock. And it's fine. In the beginning, it was okay. It was okay that your heart was like a rock field, because even if it was not popping anything, you were still getting something. It was small, but it was still there. Yeah. But now it's time for you to make your heart, like, produce fruit. How we can do that? We need to throw this rock away. And the rock are your past. Are things that happen in your past that you're trying to hide, and these are rock inside your heart because they are heavy. Yeah. They don't, and like, God is like, take this rock and throw it away. Take another rock, throw it away. Take another rock, and then you have like this, and then you have this area, dark area, when you have depression. The depression is like this spine, this bushes that they cover all the light, and they things. And God is like, let's give fire to this. Let's burn up these things. That's burning, and the burning is painful. Like, pain, because now you are seeing a light. Everything that was dark inside of you has to get out to the light, and it's hard and it's burning. But at the end, once the burning hands, like, now we have a nice, you have now a good field that you can produce the 30, the 60, and the 100-fold.
Yeah. Well, I love that you brought that up, and especially the concept of God helping our hearts be good soil, walking us through that process. And the concept of the burning being painful, I think, is really interesting, because if my sense of identity comes from my circumstances, the things that I've done in life, where I've been, and I see myself that way, if I'm going to give up the negative things that have led me to believe, this is who I am, this is the way I am, the other thing you have to give up is you have to give up the positive things. You have to be willing to say, these good things that I've done, they're not my source of identity either. And that's painful. Yep. And that's most painful to our pride. When you have to humble yourself and realize, there's a pile of rocks in the soil of my heart that I'm rather fond of. I made them into a wall, and it looks really nice, and it keeps me safe from everybody in my life. And you know what I mean? Like,
a nice wall.
Exactly. It's a nice wall, and it keeps people out, and they don't hurt me anymore, because now I'm just, me and myself, and I don't need that, right? And there's I think a lot of people that fall into that, especially without God, is you can create those walls or boundaries in your life, which is just learning how to say no to negative words that people speak to you, but you're not replacing it with anything, because we're called to be the light. We're not just called to, and we're called to be the salt of the earth, and we're called to go out and to reach other people with the light and to become sowers. Yep. We have to go beyond just being good seed, because where does the sower get his seed? He gets it from the other field that he has that produced 100-fold, and now he has all this extra, so he can now sow in this new field.
Yeah.
Right? He had extra. If you don't have extra, then all your seed is turned into bread, and you don't have anything to sow. So you have to have extra. So we have to become good soil, and there's a whole process. One of my favorite things to teach on is how to be good soil. It's something that I've meditated on for years and years and years, because we get to choose how quickly we let God make us good soil.
Yep.
And we get to choose how quickly we respond when he brings things up he'd like to burn. Because we can put a wall around the things that he's asking to burn and say, no, I'd like to keep that. That's my own little hurt. I'm gonna store that up. Don't think about it, God. I don't think about it either. It's fine. But one of the things he spoke to me that really, I think, shifted the way I approach that is he said, when I bring something up is when I'm ready to heal it.
Okay.
So if there's something in your heart that's even being exposed through this, even this conversation, my encouragement for you would be, don't hide that, don't suppress that, don't ignore that. If there's a pain there, bring that to God and invite him to show you his perspective on those things. One of the darkest, I would say, hardest moments of my life, I did that. And I asked God, show me your perspective. And I had this picture of him just coming and sitting next to me. And he's like, I was always there. You didn't know me. You didn't hear my voice. You weren't paying attention to what I was saying about you. But all the negative things other people were saying about you, I was speaking positive things to you at the same time. Now you've learned to hear my voice. But at that moment, I knew he was with me. And so even things that used to hurt didn't hurt as much, even memories of those moments, because I knew he was with me even there. And so I think it's important that as things come up, we submit those and invite God to burn them away. Invite him. Yes, God, you can have that rock. It's always been there. I like it. Just because that person said something to me, we can base years of our life off of words from other people. And it can be more than just the negative. Somebody could say, you're the best engineer in the world, and you believe that, and so therefore you're an engineer, and then God calls you to start a business. And you have to leave aside your engineering, right? And that can be even a good word that somebody's spoken that's still limiting you. And the willingness to surrender all of those words to God and let him be the one who leads our lives.
Yep. Amen. And that's, and that topic, 100%. I felt that I made my life. I mean, when I became an engineer, I was like, I'm just going to keep hustling and get next step, like you get the manager, you start to make more money, more. I was like, that's like, it's planned, I just don't need to suffer much. I don't need to do much. I'm having a great life. And then God is like, no, you're going to Charis Bible College and making zero again. And they're like, all right, sure. And it was funny because I feel like that was one of the easiest choice of my life. I'd never even thought about it. Like, I had more people thinking about that, thinking how weird, how crazy it was than myself. But also because, as you said before, I knew God was calling me for bigger. He gave me like a bigger, long vision. I just like, I want you to actually getting so much more than what you were doing now. Like engineer was just the taste of where you can be. Like actually, I'm calling you to be for people and for the kingdom of God so much more. And I was like, okay, that's great. And I was so excited. Obviously, I also didn't know like how long it would take or like what really meant. But like for me, it was like, I'm happy because I feel like I have really a purpose, because once I get to be an engineer, make that money, for me, I was like, I got it. Like I'm already making 5 times what my parents were making. And I that's just the starting. Each year I can add more and more on that thing. Why I would need more than that. And at the end of the day was because even if you feel like you have been successful, doesn't mean that you have been on purpose. That's two different things. Also, that would be a big discussion, but people always trying to say I'm successful equal I'm on purpose, or I made my purpose, I reached all my goal. But it's not true. Like success, it's not equal purpose. Actually, purpose, it's a lot more than just success. It's infinitely more valuable for people to be on purpose than to be successful. Because you met so many people and you hear so many people that they are successful, made millions, billions of dollars, and they are like you were saying before, they live a horrible life.
Yeah.
They are not happy about their life. They ended up going drugs, going something, and kill themselves through stuff because like
Yeah.
they probably, yes, they start, part of their success was through the purpose. God had a purpose to that people and was that success. That's why they opened that business, they were success. But
Sure.
because they were not following God, in one point they actually start to focus more on like how much more money I can make, instead of be like how maybe God at this point of my life in July, he doesn't want me to focus make more money, but he wanted me to focus to make a better relationship with my wife. He wanted
Sure.
me to spend more time with my kids. He wants me to go on a vacation with
Yeah.
my family. And we are so things about like, no, I need to be successful. That's mean I'm on purpose. Like I'm making money, I'm my business thing. That's my purpose. But no, it's not that. Like for example, my mom, I love her because she has a business, but she never really expanded her business to crazy height because she always say like,
Hmm.
my purpose was my family.
Hmm.
Like she's
Yeah.
like, as I want to make some money because I want to able to provide my family, but she never regret any second because she said like I decide that the time I spend with you, it's more important than my customers or it's more important than business because I can always have get new customers, but
Yeah.
I cannot get more time with my kids.
Yeah.
Like now we are all older, you know, like we are most all outside. Only my sisters left with my mom, and for her that's like and for her know that she always tell me in the phone, she's like, I'm so grateful that I decide to prioritize my family over my business because the time I spent it in the family with all of you, she was tutoring us, she loved maths, she was that's the reason why I love maths. It comes from her. And if she, because she knew that her purpose as a mother
Hmm.
was not business, but
Yeah.
her purpose as a mother was like us, and she wanted to give us, and she was still doing business. I mean, she was still
Yeah.
making money, and I think like my mom could have made millions of dollars because she's really uh business owner mindset. She's really smart and everything, but at the end of the day she was not looking to be successful. She was looking to be in purpose, and she knew that purpose God, the purpose that God gave to her was to raising us and to
Yeah.
raising me where I am now. I'm able to be where I am now, I believe, also because my mom listened to God.
Wow.
I believe my brother able to be where he is now because my mom was in his life, and it was when teachers were telling him that he was autistic, telling my mom that he was autistic, my mom was keeping saying no, he's not autistic.
Hmm.
He learned in a different way. He's
Hmm.
not autistic. He
Yeah.
learned in a different way, and it's true because he never liked math. He never liked history of things, but he had a talent God gave to him that was in music.
Wow.
He played bassoon. Bassoon was his things. He has a ton of talent. He has two masters already. He's 20. What, I'm 29. He's 23 with two masters on
Wow.
things. He play in Austria and everything. Then my mother believed different. My mother knew that God was calling her to build up the family. That
Yeah.
was her purpose, and that's where she will find success because now people they see us and they always tell her like, wow, your kids, they're amazing. Like, wow, your kids, they're like, one is in America doing having his own business, one is in Austria play classic music, you know, like your even my sister, like she has like one, my older sister, she's like a lawyer. And then like everyone, each one of us, we were empowered by a figure like our mom.
Yeah.
And that's the things, there's a big difference, purpose and things, and that where that we can connect that to what you say in the beginning,
Mhm.
that it's inside where you need to be rich, not outside. If
Yeah.
you are rich outside, doesn't matter, it doesn't mean that you are actually living a successful life or purposeful life.
Yeah.
You might be having, you can, yeah, you can drive a Ferrari, but and be like sad and dark inside and do drugs because you don't know, and depressed.
Hmm.
um,
Well, I love that you contrasted purpose and success, but also through the story of how your mom chose to live her purpose,
mhm.
it invited you to step into yours.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the kind of the hidden benefits in being authentic to how we're created and what we're created to do and our purpose is if you live out your purpose, you inspire other people to do the same,
Mhm.
Whereas if you live for success, and this is actually, it's right after, I believe it's in Mark or Luke, it might be in both, but right after the parable of the sower, when Jesus is describing to the disciples what it means, he talks about the seed that was sown amongst thorns, and that the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches distracted them from the seed, and they weren't able to bear fruit. And that's the deceitfulness of riches, is for me to trust in them, for me to say, well, I've been successful, so therefore, that's an end to itself. But money is empty. Money doesn't really exist. It's not a thing. It's an in between, an exchange of value. So if I've built up a great exchange of value, but I have no vision and purpose for what to do with it, it's empty and it doesn't mean anything, and it's useless. Whereas if I have a strong sense of purpose and vision, then money gives me the ability to do more of that purpose and more of that vision. So I think it's just powerful to discover that purpose and live it. But I think a lot of people want to know, what is that purpose? I know you said could be a podcast in and of itself, how to discover your purpose. But what do you tell people if they ask you, how did you learn what your purpose is? Are you living your purpose? I want to learn what my purpose is too. I don't know what it is. What's your go-to advice for people?
Well, my purpose, I take them to, I would say, and I like to take the Bible verse, and it's like, I believe it's Second Thessalonic, and that's, I believe it's my main purpose, and obviously people can decide, but try to find. Let me see. Second Thessalonians 1:11 and 12. Therefore, we also pray always for you, that our God would count me worthy of this calling, purpose, and fulfill all the good pleasure of his goodness and the work of faith with power, that the name of our Lord Jesus Christ may be glorified in me and I in him, according to the grace of God and Lord Jesus Christ. I believe that the first purpose in our life is, as the verse I say, is that the name of our Lord Jesus Christ may be glorified in me. That's our main purpose, and that is the purpose everyone has together. Now, the way we reach that purpose, it changed. There's like a different path,
Sure.
There's a proverb of some say that we decide, but God gives a light the path. And that's kind of things like we say first that we want to glorify Jesus, but then it's God like that to give you light to the path.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say where we go, like where I'm gonna walk in a month from now, or even a week, or even tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because that's for me to discover day by day with God. But at the same time, I know that the end goal for any walk that God takes me will be to glorify Jesus.
Yeah.
And Jesus will glorify me. That's my main purpose, my main thing. And that's why he even say in the beginning, Paul is purposely praying to that God would count him worthy of this purpose, calling. We like the Bible uses calling, but calling is nothing else that God purpose. God given purpose is our calling. Now, like that God purpose, like we actually we are not alone. We are trying to make the purpose. We hear from God, hey, I need you to do this, and we're like, okay, let's go. Where like Paul was every time, and you can see in Colossians and everything, a lot of his prayers were always about, count me worthy of this purpose, count me worthy of this calling. Like every prayer was about, hey Lord, redirect my path. If I'm going astray, because I might, take me back to my path. Like take me always back to where I need to go. Where is my purpose and things. And I asked God multiple times. I'm like, hey Lord, what I should do today? Like, should I do this or this in my business? Should I open another business? Should I do? And God is always say, majority of the time, I always hear, as long you follow peace and joy, like you're always with me. You're always on the right path. And then if you're making a mistake, I'm gonna tell you, like, apart from that, just make a choice.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna bless it. But that's the thing, and that happened when I finished Caris. I had to choose between go back to Italy and start a business there, or in the US. And I was struggling because I was like, God, you don't give me any answer. And he was like, do you have peace? And I had people tell me like, go where you have peace. And I was like, I have peace with both of things. I have peace of going back to Italy and peace of staying here in the US. Tell me, I need something else. And after praying, Lord told me like, where is your joy? I was like, well, like, if I have to be honest, I have more joy in staying here in the US because I had Sydney here. Like, it was not my wife yet, but like I was in a relationship and I felt like I don't want to be far away from her and everything. Then there was this joy inside of me to stay here, to challenge myself to stay here. He was like, then you go where your peace and joy follow peace and joy. You don't need just to follow like peace. And doesn't mean, he always told me, doesn't mean if you go to Italy you're gonna fail. It doesn't mean if you go to Italy you're gonna be away from my end purpose, that is glorifying Jesus Christ. You're gonna be there, but it's gonna just be a different path. You just made a choice. And that's the things, like, also I would like to speak to people that they feel like every choice need to be directed by God 100%. I need to feel if I don't hear God say take one or two, I need to stay on my couch until I hear God. Sometimes it can be wise, but a lot of the time I feel it's not wise, because God gave us knowledge for a purpose, give us wisdom for a purpose, and the purpose is that He wants us to make choice.
Yeah.
And as long as they're directed by peace and joy, can never fail. You're still on the right path. But God also wants to see you to make choice for yourself. That's why He gave us freedom from the beginning. He could have stopped Adam and Eve from eating the apple. He saw it. He was there. It's not that God was like, I didn't see it. I went for a lunch.
I wasn't looking.
Yes, I was not looking. I went for lunch and you ate the apple. He was like, he saw all the time. He was there all the time. But there's one thing He gave from the beginning was freedom.
Yeah.
Means that if they felt that was the right choice and they had peace, they had some type of peace that was their peace. I don't know how was that, but if they felt that, then God has to, God was there I'm gonna let it go. But doesn't mean that His purpose of glorifying Jesus Christ changed. He ended up, He still handed glorifying Jesus. It doesn't matter. Maybe it would have been nicer life for us if we would have choose the path of not eating the apple until we met Jesus Christ. Probably yes, but then we made a choice. We made the choice to eat the apple. That means that we needed war, we needed sinful, we need to have a lot of other bad stuff. But the end outcome was always that we glorify Jesus Christ. God was, anyway, no matter what we choose in that garden, He still glorified Jesus Christ because that was His will. He still was able to use people to glorify Jesus.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
You said a lot in there that I love, and talking about purpose is one of my favorite things because I think that a lot of people can get distracted with other things, but purpose is the core. Mm-hmm. If you're doing what God has purposed beforehand, Ephesians 2 verse 10, it's 8 through 10, but the end of it is that there's works beforehand that God has prepared for us to walk in. And I think that following God is a lot more about discovering the things that He has hidden for us, that He's inviting us into, than it is about, am I doing the right thing or the wrong thing? There's a verse in Jeremiah as well that says, your teacher will no longer be hidden from you, but your eyes will see your teacher, and your ears will hear a voice behind you that says, this is the way, walk in it. Mm-hmm. And I love that verse because it's behind you, this is the way, which implies you made a choice. Mm-hmm. You went to the right or to the left. But He's saying that if you're seeing your teacher, if your eyes are focused on Jesus and glorifying Jesus, then you're going to make a choice. You have to still make the choice. It's up to you. Path 1 or path 2. Mm-hmm. But if your eyes are on your teacher and you make the choice, then you will hear confirmation from the Lord saying, yes, this is the way. Mm-hmm. This is what I wanted you to do, right? Because I'm sure that you felt after, now that you and your now wife are married and have a son, I'm absolutely confident that this is what I was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Going to Italy, sure, I would have had peace, but you probably would have come back. The Lord wanted you and Sydney to be together. Mm-hmm. And so you would have taken a step to make that probably relationship, much more distant, at least separated by time and thousands of miles. but there was purpose in your staying, and you made the right choice because you followed peace and joy. But then you discovered even more good that he had for you
Yep.
in that choice. So it
Yep.
just shows the power of walking with God,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that he still requires us to make choices. He, at the end of the day, you know, it's up to us what words we take
Yep.
into our life. But if we take his words and it starts to transform the way we see, we're going to see many opportunities. It's, because if you're discouraged, especially depressed, you really just see one future. It's a negative future that you're just, no, I'm sure this is going to fail again. But then if you accept God's word and start to see yourself differently, all of a sudden you see 50 opportunities. I can start this business or that business or this one or
Mm-hmm.
this one. And you have to pick between good things.
Yep.
And then you have to do exactly what you said, I think, and follow joy and follow peace and make a decision, and then see with the Lord, is that the right way, and trust that he'll get you on the path that he's
Exactly.
prepared for you.
Yeah, I like and I agree. I want to bring you back, and we can go more on the purpose side of thing, and
Mhm.
maybe we can do even a different way. I'm gonna think about that. But yeah, for today, I would like to kind of like close with takeaways. I always like to
Sure.
leave the people with something that they can take home,
Mhm.
and they can do it to change their life. And I believe like in all our talk has been over an hour, probably an hour and a half we've been speaking, and I already we have given so much that people can take or literally use to change their life, either going out from depression, start a business, making a choice
Yeah.
in their life, and knowing that God is not judging them for the choice they're making. And then we touch like the parable of the sower in so many ways that it's
Yeah.
amazing. But really at this point I'm like, okay, what you would say, it's something that um at the end of this podcast you want to leave people with that can be helpful for them,
Yeah.
maybe in their business or maybe
Sure.
in their life in general. What do you think? What are 3 things or 5 things that you would say them, like, hey, do these things, or like think on
Yeah.
these things, and everything will help them?
Yeah. I think a lot of our conversation is really centered around one core thing.
Mhm.
In Deuteronomy, Moses is speaking to the people of Israel, and he says, I've set before you life or death, therefore choose life, that you may live. And I think that if there's, I see death as anything that brings destruction, darkness, misery into our lives.
Mhm.
And obviously, life is a future, a hope, positive things. And I think that in every circumstance, in every situation, you have a choice. You can see what happened to you as a reason that you're disqualified for the future. You can take people's words that are spoken to you. You can compare yourself to other people. You can really just be self-focused,
Mhm.
or you can choose life and you can choose to accept what God says about you, the future that he has for you, and the perspective, his word. So I would say it's really to develop this habit. So maybe just give yourself a 7-day challenge where over the next 7 days, once a day, whether it's like morning or evening, take 15 minutes and think, what have been my dominant thoughts today? Have I been discouraged? Have I been worried about something? Write that down. And then just ask God, what are the good things? What are your plans, your perspectives? And if you make that choice to start to cultivate hope, because we have the power to change our mindset and to change the words. And I'm saying once a day for 5 days, but it goes beyond that, and to the point where every single moment I hear some thought in my head or perspective or somebody's voice or somebody saying something to me about what's possible or not possible, I've made this a recurring pattern in my life where I always ask, does this bring me life or does this bring me death? Does this give me hope or does this give me fear? And it's choosing to judge the words that are coming into your life and replace the negative ones with good ones. So for 1 week, take 15 minutes a day. You decide if it's morning or evening. Write down your dominant thoughts that day. And maybe it's a mix of good and bad. But then just in your prayer time with God, just say, God, what is one new way that I can see myself, can see this circumstance. How can I have hope in this? And then write down that hope and put it somewhere, like you talked about, seeing that maybe in your bathroom, on the mirror, wherever it is, as you begin to hear. And I'd encourage you, as you spend your time in the Word, in the Scripture, that you write down the things that would give you hope, the Bible verses that God speaks that are about who we are and our identity, and use those. So I think it's just one thing. I think it's replace the fear in your life with hope intentionally.
Awesome. I like it. Yeah. Okay, and let us know how it goes. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, like, we want to know, like, after 1 week you do this, what are the changes you've seen in your life? The highest blessing in our life as a coaches and everything, it's literally to hear changes, to hear that we can impact you, that whatever we have said, even one word can impact your life, can change your life. And I also want to remind, if you're looking to get in touch with Andrew, we leave also in the description. Go down there. You will see like the website, his LinkedIn profile, ways to contact him. If you want to contact us, you can, and you are like, hey, I feel like I need some coaching, and not just in my business, but in my life. And you want us to be part of your journey in business, in life, then you can contact us and we can have some time together and we can see where you are and how we can help you. And I always tell people, like, even just 1 hour, the 3 hours with us, I never seen no one going out without learning something or without value. Everyone that sits with us, they will always leave that table with a lot of information and a lot of value. And also I ask you again to subscribe to my channel, to let me know, to like this video, to let me know what you think about this video, if this is the content you want to watch, or is there something else you would like to watch, or like if there's a specific guest you would like to have in this podcast. Just let me know in the comment. I will love to accommodate wherever it's possible. And as Andrew was saying before, feedback are what makes business successful, and also what wisdom comes from listening to feedbacks. If we are not able to receive feedback, constructive feedback, then we cannot be called ourselves wise, and that says in Proverbs 5:31, if I remember right. And yeah, I want to thank you everyone again to watch this video, and I want to see you on my next video with the next guest or with myself. Bye.